Okay, we're Kuf Gimel and Aleph 103a. All the way at the bottom of the page. Second to last line. Ad kan. The line begins with the word oi, and then sixth word is ad kan. Okay, so we analyze this verse which reads Le'to'unna lecha ra v'nega la'yikar ba'alecha, which is no catastrophe shall come upon you, and like not really to unum, like to meet you, or like bad shall not hit you, and affliction shall not be found in your tent. And we discussed what that meant. The first one being individual, no bad should happen to you, and either that's the Yetzer Hara, or it's bad dreams and anxieties and that kind of thing, and bad dreams and bad thoughts, specifically the words of the Gemara. And then no affliction shall come to your tent. Either that meant in one's relationship with their wife, one should know where they stand, or the second interpretation was that their student should one student should remain true to Torah. Okay, so the Gemara now goes to analyze the next lines in that very pasuk, next to psukim, in that very chapter of Tehillim, which is chapter 91. The first verse, is verse 10. And now the Gemara is going to analyze verses 11, 12, and 13. Now it seems from the context here, from the way the Gemara is presenting it, seems like David is speaking to his son Shlomo. David is blessing his son Shlomo. And David saying, like, no bad shall befall you, no affliction shall hit your tent. David's blessing his son. Says the Gemara like this: Ad kan, until this point, is Aviv, Baruch Aviv. His father's blessing him. David is blessing Shlomo. In that David is, giving his son manly, fatherly advice, fatherly blessing. No Yetzer Hara, have a good relationship with your wife, good relationship with your students, no anxieties. From this point forward, meaning the next verse, Berchosai imai, his mother blesses him. What's the next verse? For your angels, you're commanding, or is being commanded, lishmorcha, to guard you b'chol derechecha, in all your ways. Akapayim yisauncha, they should carry you on wings, etc. Al shachal fesen tidrich. It means like you should be carried in a calm, easy path. So this apparently is a motherly blessing more than a fatherly blessing. It's, whereas the fatherly blessing includes a kind of struggle that the person himself, that the son Shlomo has to go through, dealing with his bad thoughts, dealing with Yetzer Hara, making sure he's a good teacher. The blessing that the mother grants is, whatever you do, you should be guarded and protected, without telling him how he should do or what it should be done. Just you should be good, and you should be guarded, you should be protected. So this is a motherly blessing. A big isn't. Whatever you do, I want you to be happy, right? Now, father also is like that way, but one could read into this Gemara if one wanted to deeper. The father gives instruction and the mother gives nurturing, and there are two elements that are both important in education. Guidance. Make sure you're teaching properly, making sure you're fighting your own inner battles properly, and then there's nurturing. Just we love you, we care for you, no matter what you're doing. It's kind of the mother-father role in raising a child. If one wanted to read it in, one could do that. But then there's a third element, which is Adkan Berchosai Imoi. Until this point, his mother is giving him these beautiful blessings. Mikan ve'elech. The next verses, Berchosai Shamayim. This is heaven is blessing him. Kov Gimel Beis 103b. And here we quote the next psukim: Kivi Chashak Vafalteu. For you, I have desired, and Afalteu means protect you from falling. Asagvenu, and I will ki yada shmi, and I will raise you up because you know my name. You call upon me, and I will answer you. I'm with you in your distress. I'll protect you and honor you. Make sure your honor is protected. Length of days I shall grant you, and I'll see you in my salvation. So this is all heavenly blessing. The father can't guarantee that, neither can a mother. This is
put that in the Shabbos davening.
This is Tzadik Aleph. We say this in Shabbos davening. That's right. This is this is Hashem blessing. So I guess it's the third element in education. The father can give guidance, the mother gives nurturing, but then a person has to have a lot of faith in Hashem and daven to Hashem that things work out right. Because as we learned in the Gemara before, a person can do everything right, and it still is not a guarantee. Anyway. Okay. Gemara is going to analyze another verse in Iyov. Pasuk in Iyov says, "V'yimana me'reshayim oiram." God prevents from the wicked their light. Uzraya rama, and their raised up hand, tishavar, is broken. This is the verse. So it says the Gemara, why is the ayin of the word reshayim hanging? That's literally what it means. And as Rashi explains for us, the word ayin, today we have Iyov, all of Scripture except for Torah, we have it printed on books that make for symmetrical writings that don't have any uniqueness other than the font you choose. But if you're writing in a scroll, as was the case back in the day, they used to write all of Scripture on scrolls. Maybe there are some communities that do that, I'm sure, but certainly not common practice. So there are certain rules as to what you write when and how. Like, for example, in Menachos, we learned about when you're writing parts of Torah that are like song, and they should be broken up into lines, different things like that. Like, Hazinu is broken up into 3 lines, and Az Yashir is broken up, the lines are broken up into columns. So likewise, there's different types of things, like a small aleph, a bigger aleph, these kind of little things. So the ayin of the word Rishayim is to be elevated somewhat, and it's not written on the line. We also remember that we learned in Menachos that one makes a shirtut, like an indent in the parchment on the top of the line, and then the top of the letters are to be flush with that line on top to keep a straight line. So this ayin is raised up a little bit, so it's hanging, it's not on the line. And therefore to the reader it looks like it says Rashim without the ayin. And therefore it's V'yimna merashim oiram, God prevents from Rashim his light, V'zeraya Rama, but over on their upraised hand God breaks. Now what's a rush? So let's see. This says the Gemara. This is Reish Lakish speaking. So why is it? Why is it that the eye of the ayin, the ayin of the word ayin means eye, but which we'll talk about in a minute maybe. But why is it the ayin of the Rishayim is elevated? Given shenasa adam rush, because if a person becomes rush melamata down here, naser rush melamayla becomes rush above. So what does Rosh mean? Says Rashi. This is how Rashi teaches it. That someone who's Rosh is someone who is unpleasant and unliked and unwanted by people. Not unpopular. Being unpopular is nothing wrong with not being popular. It's just being despised by people around them. Because he's a con artist. He's a disturber. So he's always causing trouble. So people don't like him.
You say unpleasant, unwanted, and?
Actually, the word Rashi uses is hated. Sheish leisonin, he is hated. And people are not. Ruach habris means that he's despised by people. He's a known degenerate, and people don't appreciate him. So he's a low life. Says therefore the Gemara that if a person is treated that way by people around him, then you know for sure that he's treated that way from heaven. This is what the Gemara says. This echoes. Just a simple reading. This is echoed by the words of the Perek Chelek. Kol sheruach habriyos noichimena. Anyone who's ruach habriyos means like the people are pleasantly liked or just he's pleasantly, people treat him pleasantly and they think of him as a pleasant person, then Ruach HaMakom Noichei Mena, then Hashem feels the same way about him. Which is like, it's an old Yiddish fable of a person who's complaining that everybody's bothering him. Whenever people complain, people are bothering him. So the Yiddish story goes of a bird who, wherever he is, starts to stink. It's a terrible place. It's an old Yiddish thing. The bird is lying there, and it just realizes all of a sudden that the environment is in, it stinks. So, okay, that's it. It gets up, flies somewhere else. Goes somewhere else, spends 2 seconds there, and it stinks again. So he gets up, flies somewhere else, and he's flying from one place, another place. And everywhere he goes, it smells. So he's angry at the whole world. The whole place smells, and he's terrible. Until finally someone tells him, you have a little bit of something on your nose. Schmeckt auf den nose, that's the expression. It stinks on your own nose, not doesn't stink everywhere else. It's a Yiddish way of, it's old Yiddish expression to say that if everybody has everybody's terrible, then it's probably you're the problem. It happens to be one person has a problem with another person. Okay, so there could be one person's at fault, the other person's at fault. You don't know who's at fault, but everybody is terrible. Everybody's a bad person. Everybody's doing mean things to you.
The guy went to the Rabbi and said, "If everybody steps on me here."
The Tzemach Tzedek, yeah. Right, so someone said that everybody's trampling on me in the base medrash. Yeah. So Tzemach Tzedek said, "Who asked you to lie yourself down and spread yourself out all over the floor? Yeah. And people are going to step on you." Yeah, so that's the story of the Tzemach Tzedek. So that's kind of what the Gemara is saying here. Person on the simple reading, someone who's a Rosh Melamata, someone who's everybody hates him and everybody doesn't like him and he's despised by everybody. It's probably not them, and it might just be you, and therefore, the same way is in heaven. Okay. Just gonna finish reading the Gemara on the simple level, and then I'll give maybe a little deeper reading here. Okay, so says the Gemara, so if that's the case, why is the ayin hanging? Just take the ayin out. If the point is Roshim, if we're talking about people who are Rosh, people who are despised, then say so. The despised people are the one who gets this treated like by heaven like that. Why you have to keep the ayin there? As if implying that there is some element of Russia. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lezer were both discussing this issue. And Chadam, one of them said, one of the two, either Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lezer, David, out of respect for King David. Why? Because King David had a lot of enemies. And if you were just to say the word Rush, and we were just say that God treats negatively the one who is despised by a lot of people, then one might say, oh, King David's the same way. He had lots of enemies. Yeah. The Chadam, another one said, similar vein, Mishum Kvoidesh on Nehemiah ben Chaklaya. They had the respect for Nehemiah ben Chaklaya. Nehemiah, of course, is the one who, with Ezra, rebuilt the second base of Mikdash. And he also had lots of enemies and adversaries. So therefore, out of respect for him, no one should think that, oh, look at him, he's hated by everybody, so he's also one of those guys that are despised by heaven. So which means the Gemara is leaving a caveat. Generally speaking, if the whole world hates you, then the problem is internal, not external. On the other hand, there are times and there are situations where persons, in the position of leadership especially, a person has to lead the people in a certain direction, and what happens is there's jealousies and hatred, and it happens, and doesn't necessarily indicate that a person's hated, God forbid, by heaven, or despised by heaven, as it were. And therefore the ayin is there.
Does that mean Democrats?
and therefore the ayin is there to tell you that these Roshim without the ayin, these people who are despised, and they're despised by heaven, is only if there's an ayin there, only if it's also Rasha. If he's despised because of his negative behavior, not despised because of jealousies and whatnot. So now a little bit deeper, perhaps. So I'll tell you what I know from Chassidus related to this word Rush, and then maybe it's going to connect to this ayin, the letter ayin specifically, right? Being an eye, the word ayin meaning eye. That's what the word ayin means. So in the Vashkach Pratis connects to Yitzvat. We'll explain. So we all know that the previous Rebbe left manuscripts to be published on the day which later turned out to be the day he passed away. Right? He had prepared manuscripts to be published. It was his mother or his grandmother's yahrzeit. First his mother, then his grandmother, Yud Shvat and then Yud Gimel Shvat. And it turned out that he passed away himself on Yud Shvat. Okay, Okay, so these manuscripts have become associated with his passing, and very much associated with, like, the transfer of leadership, as you will, to the Rebbe himself. And the Rebbe every year the Rebbe would speak about one chapter of that manuscript. Famous manuscript known as Basi Lagani. That's the opening words of that manuscript, based on a verse in Shir HaShirim. So one of the chapters, it discusses a bit difference between the Reish and a Dalid. Why Reish and Dalid? Always come Dalid and Reish in... No, Atbash does not connect to Dalid and Reish. No, because it's based on a Zohar about what the letters Shin, Reish, Kuf, Shin. Anyway, the bottom line is the connection between Reish and Dalid. Now, both Reish and Dalid, as a word, Reish, the word Reish being this word Rosh, empty, over here despised, actually translated as despised, and the word Dalid comes from the word Dal, as in poor. A Dal is a poor person. So both, and the word Reish, which over here translates as despised, also can mean empty. Ani v'rosh, someone who's empty, lacks everything. So the previous Rebbe explains that there are two types of emptiness. One's a Dalid and one's the Reish. Reish is empty in the negative sense, and Dal is empty in the positive sense. How so? The Reish is empty because he's lacking Kedusha. He's lacking holiness. It's on the end of the letters, as the Zohar explains, that this is the negative letters at the end there. And that's the person who's empty. He's empty from Kedusha. He's empty from godliness. The Dalid at the beginning is also empty. But why is he empty? He's empty because he's lacking any ego. And therefore he's empty and open to receive from Hashem. And it's expressed even in the way the Dalid and the Reish look. They both look the same, the Dalid and Reish. Right? There's a horizontal line at the top and a vertical line on the right side. The difference is only that the Dalid has a small little
an opening.
a little
Intrusion on the top.
The top right at the corner, there's a little thing that pops out. That is, says the previous Rebbe, is like a Yud, which is the ultimate bittul, the self surrender, and therefore that's like it's a connection point. In other words, the Reish is empty; it's closed off. He's empty of kedusha because he's full of himself. So it's a closed off emptiness, not allowing any kedusha in. The Dalid is like connecting to a higher place, in that he's open, he's empty, and that he's empty of his own self, and therefore willing to receive from above.
I was going to say, like a keli that has an opening at the top,
allowing for it to come in.
Receive, yeah.
And therefore, perhaps here, the Rasha, who's the Rosh, despised by everybody, and it actually fits right in. Why is someone despised by everybody usually? Because the person has no room for anybody else. A person who has no room for anybody else, he has no room for anybody else, he has no room for God, and therefore despised by people, and unfortunately by the Eibishter also. As the Gemara is implying here. That with a person who's hated by the whole world, and obviously there's a problem with him, and therefore he's treated by heaven that way as well, God forbid. And perhaps it connects to this idea of being Rosh, being empty of Kedusha, because a person's full of himself. When a person's full of himself, there's no room for other people, and there's no room for the Eibishter either. And this happens, and I'm suggesting, and you can disagree. This happens maybe because the person's ayin is hanging. Meaning to say, the ayin is an eye, right? Which connects to this year Yud Shvat, because this year is 70 years since they became Rebbe, and ayin is 70. I'm throwing this in there. Why not? A nice remez. But the ayin is missing, and the person's lacking as pasuk we say it in. Person has ears and doesn't hear, and the person has eyes and doesn't see. And what the verse means there is the person doesn't see deeper than his own little reality. So he's missing the ayin, he's missing the capacity to see a little bit deeper, that there's an Eibishter in the world, there's a God in the world, there's other people in the world, he's not the only one, doesn't have to be all about himself all the time. He's unable to see past that. But we don't want to remove the ayin completely, because then then we're lacking the word Rasha, and then you can misunderstand it. Maybe that's what the Gemara means here. Anyway, welcome to agree, disagree. Little interpretation.
Mentions the word Rashi.
Sorry?
He was the word Rosh.
Where are you reading from?
The Hagalat Vitzioni on the left-hand side.
Oh, I see.
So the thing is, because someone like Russia means someone who's like in a position of unjustified power. They say like self-appointed Russia, as opposed to David and Nehemiah, who were they had a position of power, but it was justified.
Yeah. Okay, a few more lines. Over there.
Okay.
And now this actually, it gets back to what we were talking about before. We're talking about Menashe and Achav. There's two of the, actually in Yeravim as well, the three kings who we said do not have a share in the world to come. And the Gemara concludes the discussion on a high note in praise, which is interesting, in that notwithstanding the fact that they lost their share in the world to come because of their degenerate idol worship, as we described at length in the last few days here, last few shiurim here, last few weeks already, nonetheless, they were major Talmud scholars, major Torah scholars, as we also discussed. So it says the Gemara like this, Tanur Rabbanim, our sages taught, Menashe, the king Menashe, one of these kings who we said lost a share in the world to come, at least according to one view. There's another view that said that he did teshuvah, as we discussed a couple of days ago. Nonetheless, as the Gemara like this, Hayashayna, he would review Chamishim v'chamesh panim, 55 different angles. He would study and come to 55 different perspectives. The Torah's Kohanim in the Torah of Kohanim. Torah's Kohanim is another way of calling the book of Vayikra. So Rashi says it every year. He would review the book of Vayikra, which is the most complex, halachically speaking, the most complex books of the 5 books. All the different karbanos and tumah and tara, the most complicated halachas are to be found there. Right? Shemai, the end of Shemais has mishpatim, has laws of monetary laws. They're not as abstract. And by Midbar, you have a lot of the things related to the life cycle, the yearly cycle, like the karban, the holidays and whatnot. But Vayikra has lots of laws, but the difficult part when you say Teres Kainim, usually it's talking about Tumah and Tara, the laws related to Beis Hamikdash, purity and impurity. It's a very complicated set of laws. So Menashe would review it every single year, and each year would come up with a different angle. And he did this 55 times. Each year, a different angle, a different perspective. Keneged, corresponding to Shnei Malchusei, the years of his reign. As we learned, he was king for 55 years. Every single year, this is while his idol worship, while he's leading the people down idol worship. He's studying the laws of Teres Kohanim, and each time coming with a fresh perspective. Likewise, Achav, same thing. He would study every single year the book of Kohanim, but for him it was Shmoyne v'chamisha, 85 times. Suppose he was king for 85 years?
No, only 22 years.
No, so why did he get to 85? That's in
reference to Menashe.
That's Menashe. So why 85 for Achav?
See the number 85.
Don't know. That's what it says.
Yeah.
Why is that? It doesn't say anything. Surprising, it doesn't say anything. Yeah. And Yeravam Meya Shloisha. So Menashe did it 55 times, once a year. Achav, for whatever reason, got to 85, and Yeravam got to 103. I just thought of something. How many years is Achav king?
It was also, check the number of 22 years.
20. How many?
I think it was also.
The Gemara mentioned it before.
It was 22 years.
22?
I'm not sure. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, remember?
Or something like that, yeah? 20.
Let's check it.
No, that was how many years he did Teshuvah. That's Menashe. That's how many years Menashe did Teshuvah.
Menashe 55, that's clear. Menashe is 55. But,
Oh, you're right. Achav was 22 because Menashe said there was like Achav.
yeah, because also 22.
Okay, so never mind. I was going to make a cheshbon, but it's not. It doesn't add up. Never mind. Anyway, all this to say that these three kings, even notwithstanding the fact that they lost a share in the world to come, were great Torah scholars.
Yeah.
Which I guess the lesson can go a lot of ways, but the basic lesson here is that as great as a person becomes in a scholarship or in this way or in that way, it doesn't mean he's immune from negativity. Just because a person has virtue in one place and he's studying Torah at these lofty levels, it doesn't mean he's immune all of a sudden from other yitzharas and other evil inclinations.
Yeah, Achav clears with 22 years.
22, right?
103, yeah.
Anyway, I tried making a calculation, but it doesn't work anyway. All right, have a wonderful day, everybody.